up, I got 4 hidings. Now, some of you might be thinking, I must have been a pretty good kid. How could I have only gotten 4? But my mom had a very good strategy going about hidings. She kept them for the important stuff. You know, those rare, special occasions. And thinking back on these 4 hidings, I realized each of them represent a value or a principle my mom wanted me to have and felt I didn't have at the moment, or I wasn't displaying that. My most memorable and biggest hiding was because I lied. And it was because of a simple ice cream, but that wasn't the point. The fact that I remember it to this day is the point. And because of that hiding, honesty and integrity has formed a solid foundation on which my value system is built today. My second hiding was because I refused to take responsibility for something that I had done. And I soon realized how important it is to take responsibility and to be accountable. And I'm so happy it was my mom who gave me the hiding that day instead of this harsh world. And that's also the thing I want to talk about today, is accountability. But before we can look at what accountability is, we need to look at what the difference between responsibility and accountability is, because the two terms can often be confused with each other. When we look at responsibility, we see that it's something that can be measurable. There are specific outcomes, and you can say it's part of your duty list, or it forms part of what your contract says. Now, if I were to hire a landscaper, and I would say to him, I have 3 tasks I want you to complete. The first is to trim the trees. The second is to cut the grass. And the third is to water the plants with the hose that I have provided. Now, these are all 3 things that can be measured. There are specific outcomes, and it forms part of his duty list. I can physically go to check up if he has completed all 3 tasks. Now, if, say for instance, he gets to my house one day and he trims the trees, he cuts the grass, but then he finds the hose is broken. Does it say in his duty list or under his responsibilities that he has to also fix the hose when it's broken, or even to find alternative ways of watering the plants? So if the landscaper does not water the plants that day, is he being an irresponsible employee? What he's not being is an accountable employee. Because when we look at the difference between responsibility and accountability, responsibility is the obligation to act. And accountability is I have an obligation to answer for my actions. Being accountable means more than just following through on your commitments or doing what these duty lists or contracts say we must do. It's about taking responsibility for our whole role and everything that fits in with that. It's about delivering results consistently. It's about being reliable and trustworthy. It's about exceeding expectations and about pushing the boundaries to get the job done. It might sound like a perfect and very far world, but in fact, it's just as far away as we are willing to stretch for it. Now, I've studied a few popular approaches, and I've decided to implement and test 2 strategies. The first is adopted from the book, The 4 Disciplines of Execution. The 4th discipline, titled Create a Cadence of Accountability, it wraps up the book nicely by saying that after we have decided on a wildly important goal, our week, relating to discipline 1, and we have identified the lead measures to get to our week, we should start keeping our teams accountable for the outcomes. Now, they suggest that we have something called week sessions, where we only discuss 3 things. And these 3 things are the 3 R's: to report, to review, and to recommit. Reporting means reporting on the previous week's commitments. Reviewing is updating the scoreboard. And recommitting is to recommit for our next week session or our next meeting. Now, I implemented this concept, and we now have weekly Stokvel meetings. And we decided to call it Stokvel because when we look at the definition, we see that a Stokvel is an investment society, which is essentially what a team is. And each member has to contribute an agreed amount. So you can't just contribute whatever you like. Now, the concept of Stokvel is very relatable in South Africa, and it's a very familiar concept too. But the Stokvel concept, just like other things, isn't without flaws. A member of the Stokvel can withdraw without notice. They can withdraw without even contributing, and that can leave losses for the rest of the members in the team. Now, if you use this approach alone, it's easy for some of the members to not do what is expected of them and kind of get away with it easily. At the end, the wig was made, the objective as a team was achieved, but during the process, some of the members have had to contribute more than others to make up for the losses of those underperformers. Now, the ones who contributed more can be remunerated for their work, which makes it even easier to kind of forgive the ones who didn't contribute what they had to. So we have to implement a second strategy for individual accountability, which brings me to the second book that I consulted, the New York bestseller, Crucial Accountability. I wanted to find out what they were saying about keeping individuals accountable. And the bottom line of their 2 decades of research was that the gap between bottom and top performers, closing that gap meant that leaders had to step in and have crucial confrontations. Now, my third hiding was for a reason I didn't understand until only a few years ago. You see, I got a hiding because I lost my school fee money that my mother sent with me to school. Now, I knew that someone had actually taken the money, and I also knew who it was. The fact is that I wasn't ready to have that kind of a confrontation with the much older girl who had taken the money. And my mother thought that she gave me a lesson on negligence that day. But the real lesson was not to leave a situation until it spins out of control and to have that crucial confrontation when the timing is right. Now, we all have areas in our lives where crucial confrontations need to happen. We might have an employee who keeps coming in late, or someone who just simply doesn't do their job. Now, if we do not have the conversations when we need to, 3 things happen. First is, others might think that you are giving permission. And there might even be a moment where you feel like, I'm giving permission now. The second is, others might think that you have favorites. They might be thinking that she reprimanded me when I did the same thing. And the third is, every time they display this behavior or this action or even lack thereof, you kind of build up inside until you can't take it anymore. Now, some people find it very hard to have these confrontations. So the book offers us some guidelines on how to structure these kinds of conversations. And they make it very easy for us to remember by using an acronym, CPR. Start with the content. Tell them that the conversation is about how they are late every day. Then show them the pattern, that the behavior keeps repeating itself, and then tell them how this is affecting the relationship you have with them. Point out to them how they might be disrespecting the rules that everyone else has to follow. And you can also tell them how it's breaking the trust that you have with them. Now, having this crucial conversation, together with following applicable disciplinary procedure, if that is in place, will complement each other and will take it from only being a reprimand to a lesson. And that is how you keep individuals accountable. By now you might be wondering what my fourth hiding was for, and it was simply because I disrespected someone, which is probably one of the biggest values my mother taught me. But I think that is something for a different video in a different day. Thank you for watching.